Welcome back again to Last Week I Watched. I'm Mark and I watch stuff and review it for you so you can decide whether or not it's worth your time. So last week I watched Temple, Jungle Cruise, Murder on the Orient Express, Till Death, Red Notice, yes, Red Notice, not Burn Notice, and Shadow in the Cloud. So let's talk about them. First up, it's Temple. It's a movie from 2017 starring Logan Huffman, Natalia Warner and Brandon Sklenar. Apologies if I massacred your name. The movie was showing on Netflix. It's about three American tourists. They're following a mysterious book through Japan to investigate temples. One of the girls is doing a research paper or a study paper on the Japanese temples, and when they find out about this strange temple, they decide to go and investigate it, despite the fact that there are mysterious things happening that should probably warn them to stay away. But when the spirits entrap them, their adventure quickly becomes a horrific nightmare. The story of this film is quite simple. There are happenings that occur, but they're so random and don't make sense. So it's really hard to tie it together into a coherent story. What motivates the temple guardian? Why were the children abducted? Are they luring people to the temple to do horrific things to them? Why? I don't really know. There's sort of a through line going on as well, where the police are questioning someone who's horribly scarred. The subtitles describe them as the faceless man, and I think we're supposed to assume that perhaps this is one of the people that was caught up in the story, but it never really kind of ties back to that person as to why they're faceless, and what happened to them. And I don't know, as a coherent whole, it's just not that coherent. It's also not that scary. Nothing much happens until the last 15 minutes or so, and even then it doesn't really build any suspense or terror. And the fact that there's no sort of through story, through line to tie it together as well, it's kind of a mystery as to what's really going on, and not necessarily a mystery that you're that into, really. Clearly something going on with the temple. But I guess really the lure of the film is more about the visuals. For me, I personally enjoy visiting Japan, and so seeing the locations around Tokyo, around the countryside and things like that, the temple and so on, was interesting to me. But the rest of the story and the characters sadly wasn't. And so I found this film disappointing. Once again, story is key, and this one was a letdown. It's just undercooked. So I can't really recommend it. It's not really worth watching. If you're interested in the travel log side of it, I guess, and that it's nice to see some of these locations, and I guess some of the people and things like that, that's fine. That kind of helped me feel better at the moment, because we can't travel and it's been a couple of years since we've really been able to go back to Japan. But overall, as a movie, it's a bit of a fail, so I don't recommend it. The next film was Jungle Cruise. It's from 2021, starring Dwayne Johnson, aka The Rock, Emily Blunt, and Jack Whitehall and Jesse Plemons. It's got a really outstanding cast in it, so I was kind of surprised about that. I knew The Rock was in it, but not some of the other actors that crop up in it, so that's a nice surprise. The film was showing on Disney Plus. It's based on the Disneyland Jungle Cruise ride. Now, I've been on the Jungle Cruise ride at Disneyland Tokyo, and I did enjoy the cheesy humour during the cruise, which is similar to the actual ride. And there are call-outs to things such as the pathetic waterfall, the fake natives, the dodgy hippo. So I did actually find that stuff fun, although it's not really enough there to sustain a film, and thankfully they don't really try and sustain the whole film on those nostalgia things for the ride. But it does, while it takes a little while to get going because they have to establish the characters and I guess establish the story, once they embark on their actual search for the Tears of the Moon, it ramps up pretty quickly. There's some slightly suspect CGI, but generally it's pretty good. The film looks pretty impressive. It's bright, it's colourful and things like that. It's just really some things like, I guess some of the animals, the jaguar and things like that, doesn't quite look right. But I suppose it's better than having an actor murdered by a jaguar, so I can understand why they did it. It's certainly not a deal breaker by any means. The movie's story is quite similar to Pirates of the Caribbean once the undead conquistadors show up, exhibiting similar fates to the pirates in Dead Man's Chest. The conquistadors have become part of the jungle, incorporating snakes, jungle plants, bees, etc. Kind of like much the same way the pirates had taken on barnacles and octopuses and whatnot. The story could have possibly used another tune-up. I wasn't really clear what the German prince was there for. I wasn't sure if he was just looking to rob the Tears of the Moon for wealth, or whether he was after it to I guess, save someone, which would have paralleled the sort of the through-running story of the conquistadors. I was informed afterwards online that he was there looking for immortality and power for the Germans, but I never really sort of got that. It didn't really build enough around some of those characters, and I do think that in some cases there were some minor characters that could have maybe used some fleshing out, but there was perhaps more characters than there needed to be. It was interesting building out the Jungle Cruise storyline, and the rival cruise operator who was seeking to drive the Rock's character out of business. But they did spend a lot of time on someone who, I guess, wasn't a major character to the story, really. He was just, I guess, a bit around establishing the Rock's character and his Jungle Cruise. So, I don't know, so some things I think they perhaps could have done with wasting less time on that character and more in fleshing out the German if he was going to be a major protagonist in the story. But it's fine, it's one of those things. The movie's fun, it's just an adventure, it's okay for the family, probably a little scary in some places for the small kids. And it has set itself up with a sequel, so I'm assuming they're looking to build some kind of franchise out of it, and I'd be okay with that. There is a bit of a twist towards the ending that I'm not going to spoil. And I was surprised with that. I wasn't necessarily expecting that, so that was good. That subverted my expectations a bit. Yeah, it was okay. It was fun enough. I wouldn't say it's quite up there with Pirates of the certainly the first Pirates of the Caribbean. It's up there well enough with some of the subsequent lesser pirates, but it was still quite enjoyable. So I recommend to check out Jungle Cruise. Okay, the next film was Murder on the Orient Express. This is the 2017 remake. The story's been made a number of times now, so it's based on a book starring Kenneth Branagh, Daisy Ridley, Willem Dafoe, Dame Judi Dench, and I watched it on Disney+. So it's an Agatha Christie story about a murder that occurs on a train, and celebrated detective Hercule Poirot is stranded on the train and is recruited to solve the case. The story is from 1934, so it's a period piece. It's quite nice to see a good period movie. Certainly brings back the romanticism of the classic train ride, the sort of Art Deco, the period. It was nice to see. It's a good story in that it challenges Poirot to consider the killer's point of view, which I think is it's a different way of approaching that kind of murder story. Although, given that it's an old story now, it has been adapted a few times. It's got an absolutely stellar cast in it. Not all of them get massive amounts of screen time, but certainly while they're there, it helps to have impressive actors. And it's a good movie. If you're not familiar with the story, by all means, definitely watch it. It's very well acted, beautifully presented, and it does have a twist, shall we say. And if you're not familiar with it, it's interesting to see whether or not you can solve it for yourself. That's kind of what I enjoy about these sorts of films, is trying to figure out if I can solve the mystery myself. So check it out. Alright, the next film was Till Death. It was a movie from 2021 starring Megan Fox, Ian Mackin and Kellen Mulvey. It was on Netflix. It's about a woman. She's left handcuffed to a dead husband as part of a sick revenge plot. Unable to unshackle herself from him, she has to survive as killers arrive to finish her off. It was quite a good film. I was pleasantly surprised by it. As a thriller, it's pretty good, and it was certainly an original conceit. It does have shades of Gerald's Game, but I guess in Gerald's Game, where he's died unintentionally, this one died very intentionally, with the very specific intent to punish this woman in a way that could only be called the ultimate douche move. The only problem I sort of had with it was there wasn't really enough done to establish the relationship between the two main characters. They clearly don't like each other, and it's telegraphed pretty early on. And she's clearly having an affair with someone. But I just didn't look at those characters and ever felt like they perhaps would have ever liked each other. They just didn't ever really seem to fit together. So I guess I kind of wanted to understand that relationship a little bit better. To feel the impact of the relationship breaking up, perhaps. Whereas I very quickly felt like this woman should not be with this man. This man is not a nice man. And she had pretty well given up, but I never really understood why that was the case. So I guess that it maybe needed a little bit more time to flesh that out. Quickly, it all goes very badly, and clearly the husband has engineered things to happen in a particular way, and as other characters are drawn into his circle of destruction, it's clear he's plotted quite a complicated act of revenge to destroy his wife, and I enjoyed that. It was an interesting... it's an interesting story that I haven't seen done before. I'm aware of these guys in real life that try to, that say, oh, well, if I can't have you, no one can have you, so I'm going to destroy you. But I've never seen them, thoroughly plot to, take themselves out and then thoroughly plot to destroy this person. So that was interesting, and I enjoyed it. It was a good thriller, so I recommend it. Check it out. If you like a good revenge story thriller type of thing. Alright, the next film was Red Notice. It's a 2021 film starring Dwayne Johnson, The Rock again, Ryan Reynolds and Gal Gadot. It was on Netflix. So it's about an Interpol agent, The Rock, who's tracking down the world's most wanted art thief. Or art thieves. Dwayne Johnson's very good as usual. I'm not sure that I buy him as an analyst necessarily. I could definitely buy him as an FBI agent or someone like that. But he's built too much as a brawler to be someone that I would necessarily buy as being highly cerebral, since he's supposed to be an analyst. So that was interesting. But again, certainly not a deal breaker. And he did a really good job of playing straight man to Ryan Reynolds. They sort of bounce off each other. Certainly once things get going as well, and you feel like they kind of settle into the characters, they certainly spark off each other a lot more than they did initially, where I felt Ryan Reynolds perhaps was coming across a little bit tired maybe, or I don't know. I guess that's the reason why he's taking a break. He's certainly been in a few things lately. I have to say, it's very hard though to hear Ryan Reynolds equipping as anything other than Deadpool, and frankly, if he'd strolled onto screen in his Deadpool suit, I'd have been okay with that. He's absolutely that character now, and I'm personally hanging out for another Deadpool movie, so when you've got a minute, Ryan, that'd be great. Gal Gadot's in the film, much less than expected. She does take a while to turn up, but it looks like she's having great fun with it. She's certainly... she's quite relaxed and breezy, and yeah, certainly plays the highly intelligent criminal well. So it was interesting to see her in something other than Wonder Woman. So and yeah, I enjoyed her performance. The film twists and turns a few times. It does have quite a substantial twist towards the end, which I'm not going to spoil. And yeah, I didn't necessarily see it coming. I guess there was some warning signs that you felt that things were a bit off. But overall, it was good. It was good, and I have to say it was probably a better heist film than Army of Thieves was. It was good that they followed through the heist, and then again they did things to present it in different ways. Sometimes they present the heist as it's being explained, and then sort of show it as it goes off the rails and stuff like that. It's really good. It's good. So I recommend it. It's a fun action film, and it sets itself up for a sequel. So I'm guessing this is coming from The Rock's production company, that hopefully he's looking to do something more with it. So maybe there'll be a Red Notice 2. We'll see. Okay, the last film was Shadow in the Cloud. It's a film from 2020 starring Chloe Grace Moretz, Luke Robinson and Kellen Mulvey again, and watch this one on Prime. This is about a female World War II pilot, spy, admin. I'm not really sure what she is, but she's traveling on a B-17 Flying Fortress with top secret documents, and encounters some kind of evil presence on board during the flight, which they have to fight against. I was interested in the setting. The World War II period is an interesting and unusual choice for this kind of film, and but then it makes weird choices that don't really gel, and that's what I didn't quite understand. I'm not sure the film needed the propaganda film at the beginning, which talks about gremlins, as I felt it kind of spoilt the film straight out. So when the problem started to arise, you immediately leaped to gremlins. There was no sort of mystery left around it. And on some level, I was hoping that they would be the small, mischievous kind from the other movie, Gremlins. But we got sort of a weird bat-like thing. The creature's quite good looking though, so I can't really complain, but the tone of the film is so strange. Comical gremlins in drag and things would have probably fitted right in. One of the choices I thought was weird, to do a period movie and then use sort of like techno music or synthesizer, like an 80s synthesizer soundtrack. So I thought that was quite a strange choice, and it really does give the film quite a strange feeling. So I'm not really sure what that was about. Anyway, as the film's good. Obviously, they're all set in a contained space, so there's not a lot of sets or locations or anything like that. The film starts off with a misogynistic and hostile crew, to which we throw in marauding Japanese planes and the Gremlin. It doesn't feel like a horror movie. I guess it's trying to be, but it's a weird pastiche of elements. It's not sure if it's a horror movie or a female empowerment movie. I read that they were inspired by things like Alien, with Ripley and stuff like that. So I get that they've tried to make her a central figure. But I guess part of that is they've turned her into a Mary Sue, and that she seems to be good at everything. And I think they later on allude that she was a pilot of some kind, even though she doesn't seem to have had a lot of flight hours or anything like that. But she seems to be quite good at the gunnery and everything else. So I guess I would have liked to have seen her come together with that crew under that situation, and then maybe she could have grudgingly earned their respect, and then they would work together. And instead, it's kind of like she's now fighting to save everybody on there, and everybody else is an idiot, and she's massively competent. So I guess that's another thing that is strange. I got no problem with empowering the women. I got no problem with female characters. That's fine. But make them all work together. I mean, you don't have to be like the recent Star Wars films where Rey is instantly good at every single thing she does. She cannot fail, and everyone else is woefully incompetent and sort of reduced to a Jar Jar Binks type figure. Make them all good, you know, or make them good at the things they work to, so they have to leverage each other's skills and work together. That's, I think, more empowering, you know, that you've got a character that can hold their own with the other characters. You don't have to necessarily make all the other characters dumb, so in comparison, this female character looks amazing. Again, I think there's some interesting ideas in this film, but there's probably some issues with the story that probably needs some ironing out. I guess, what is the motivation of the Gremlin? Why is the Gremlin there? I mean, I know about Gremlins from the war, when they're supposed to be a metaphor for causing problems that, you know, unexplained mechanical failures or whatever occurred because of these things. But this Gremlin seems to be interested in going after the MacGuffin of the movie. And I don't really understand why the Gremlin wants that thing, without spoiling what it is. So, yeah, it's a weird movie. I don't get what story it's trying to tell or what it's trying to say. It just didn't gel for me, which is a shame, because I did feel like there were some really interesting ideas, and there's some real interesting kernels of elements and things. And I think perhaps if maybe the script had just had a few more passes just to really refine it and pull it together better, it would have been probably a better film. So I don't necessarily recommend it. I probably wouldn't watch it again. I don't think you're missing much, but if you're interested in the setting and things too, and yeah, if you think that it might hold you some interest, check it out and let me know what you think of it. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. Okay, so as always, these are my reviews for this week. These are just my opinions, but if you have any thoughts, please do leave comments below. It's really interesting to hear from people and you know, what they think. I think with art, it's always subjective anyway. It's always down to your personal opinion and biases, and whether you like. Some people like things that other people don't like, and that's cool. That's fine. But yeah, I'd certainly be interested to hear what you think. Please click on the like and subscribe. That's going to help me to build this channel out, and feel free to leave any suggestions as well if there are things that you recommend that I watch. Alright, so thanks again, and I'll see you for the next video. Bye now.